Bad films. There have been many of them, but perhaps none worse than Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Its name is terrible, its story is terrible, and it's terrible. Every time my mate and I see a bad film, we spend hours talking about how we would have done it. Then, one day, the penny dropped. Eureka. Instead of sitting on these brilliant ideas, why not share them with the world? So that's exactly what we've done. Here at FilmFixers, we take bad films, come up with our own version, and share it with you, our viewers, in fewer than 15 minutes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the FilmFixers version of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Star Wars Episode 1, Return of the Sith. Everything's going pretty well in the galaxy. The Jedi are at the top of their game, there's universal peace. Everything's just peachy. Then, BAM! A Jedi Master disappears. A Jedi goes out looking for him, then BAM! He/she disappears. That happens a few more times. Well, as you can imagine, the Jedi are pretty miffed because so many Jedi Masters are disappearing, and Yoda says, "Something fishy going on there is," and Mace Windu says, "I've had it with all these motherfucking Jedi disappearing all the motherfucking time." So the Jedi Council decides to send out a talented duo to find the missing Jedi. Qui-Gon Jinn and his recently graduated apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are flying in space using the Force to try and sense where the missing Jedi are, when all of a sudden they see a massive, evil-looking ship, and they sense a massive disturbance in the Force on board, and Qui-Gon says, "I think the Jedi might be on that massive, evil-looking ship," and Obi-Wan says, "I totally agree." So they surreptitiously board the ship. Well, as soon as they get out of their ship to scout the massive evil-looking ship, surprise! It was a trap.
It's a trap!
Their lightsabers are taken, their ship is destroyed, and they're taken into custody. Then one of the guards says, "Alert Lord Maul, we've captured 2 more Jedi." What bad luck. But don't worry, they're not willies. They needn't worry about custody. Handcuffed and apparently trapped, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are being led to their cells by guards, but at a nod from Qui-Gon and a nod of affirmation from Obi-Wan, the 2 Jedi force grab their lightsabers from the unsuspecting guards and make mincemeat of anyone who stands in their path, escaping from their captors' clutches faster than a fat man will consume an entire package of jammy Dodgers / a large bag of biscuits. Upon running through the ship, they discover and hijack a small escape craft, and they fly away from the massive, evil-looking ship. Qui-Gon says that the ship is probably being tracked, so they'll have to abandon it and lie low on the first planet they encounter. We return to the ship, where minutes later, in comes, cue the dramatic music, Darth Maul. He's ugly and horny. Not sexually, mind you, he literally has horns, and he's a very, very mean-looking bloke. Upon asking where the Jedi are, the guards say, "Sir, the Jedi have escaped." And he says, "What?" No, he goes, "What? What?" Yeah, that's what he sounds like. And he massacres much of the crew. Oh, did we forget to mention that we're saying Auf Wiedersehen to battle droids because they're dumber than someone who's stupid. We're sticking with men because we're not f***ing idiots. So Darth Maul phones home just like a horny evil E.T. and he says, "My master, 2 Jedi have hijacked an escape pod. We have tracked them to Tatooine. Shall I pursue them?" And Darth Sidious says, "Most certainly, Darth Maul," or something like that. And Darth Maul sets out in his awesomely high-tech spaceship to the desert planet. We do a signature white transition to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, who've abandoned the escape craft on a desert planet. So they walk for an hour in a day or something like that, and maybe pass some Jedi wisdom back and forth, and we get the impression that they're really, really great friends, but definitely not homosexuals. Soon they reach Mos Eisley, the armpit of the galaxy, and Qui-Gon suddenly senses that there's a Jedi somewhere in the town, and so does Obi-Wan. They start snooping about the town, and they find one bloke who buys space junk off this 15-year-old kid, who says that the 15-year-old kid recently tried to sell him a lightsaber. Well, as you can imagine, this interests Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon very much indeed. So they go looking for the kid. When they find him, the first thing he says is, "Holy crap, you're Jedi Knights," and Qui-Gon says, "How did you know that?" And he says, "I just felt it." And then he says really quickly, "I swear I just found the lightsaber in the desert." And Obi-Wan says, "Show us where you found it." And the kid says, "Only if you pay me." Because he lives on a desert planet, you know? He's at the bottom of the heap and he's become crafty over the past several years. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon look at each other all annoyed and they're like, "That greedy little shit." But all Qui-Gon says is, "Fine, just show us where it is." We return to Darth Maul, who has touched down on Tatooine and found the escape pod. And though Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are wise Jedi, they neglected to cover up their tracks, so Darth Maul sets off towards Mos Eisley. When Darth Maul reaches Mos Eisley, he finds the same person who told Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon about the kid. The guy looks Darth Maul up and down and obviously thinks, I don't like the look of him, so he says, I don't know nothing. Well, then Darth Maul's like, how about a Republic credit or two? And the guy's like, f*** Republic credits. So then Darth Maul flashes out his lightsaber and he's like, so, you can tell me or you can die. And the guy's like, fine, I'll tell you. And after he's told him, Darth Maul runs him through because he's a super nasty guy. So the kid brings Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon to the middle of nowhere. Along the way, Qui-Gon says something like, I feel like something terrible has happened. And Obi-Wan says something like, so do I. I feel as this place is a place of death. And the kid says, I feel the same way. That's how I found this place. Eventually the air begins to smell really, really nasty, and the kid brings them to the edge of a pit, and he points down into it. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon look into it to find, wait for it, a heap of mangled, rotting corpses that can be identified as the remains of Jedi by their robes and tunics. And Qui-Gon says, do you know how this happened? And the kid says, I don't, I swear to midi-chlorians. And Obi-Wan says, Medi what? And the kid says, I don't know, I like making up random stupid words that make the fanbase of a successful franchise die a little inside whenever they hear it referenced. So Qui-Gon says, thank you for bringing us here. And the kid says, are you going to pay me? And they pay him with some space money, and Qui-Gon says, we need to hire transport to Coruscant. Do you know where we can go about doing that? And the kid's like, I'll set you up with a guy if you get me a drink in the Mos Eisley cantina. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon look at each other like, he really is a greedy little shit. But all Qui-Gon says is, very well. So they go back to Mos Eisley, and they go back to the Mos Eisley Cantina, where the Cantina band are rocking like Jimi f***ing Hendrix, except they're playing on bassoons instead of guitars. They look absolutely hideous, and they're not Jimi Hendrix. Well, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon buy the kid a drink, and the kid asks them what it's like to be a Jedi. But Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are in a hurry, so Obi-Wan says, who will fly us to Coruscant? We need to leave as soon as possible so we can report our findings to the council. And the kid says, I will. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon look at each other in disbelief and they say, aren't you a bit too young to fly? And he says, I'm the best pilot in the Outer Rim. And that's not a homosexual joke. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon look at each other and Qui-Gon says something patronizing like, thank you, my young friend, but that won't work. When who should show up? But Darth Maul, and boy is he pissed, angry, not drunk, because he still hasn't found the Jedi. Immediately Qui-Gon says, my mind is clouded, and Obi-Wan says, so is mine, and Qui-Gon says, I feel the dark side of the Force, and then Darth Maul goes up to the bar and takes off his hood, and they say, oh shit, this is a really bad guy. And then, all of a sudden, they see the barman pointing in their direction, and they realize that they've been spotted. Well, Darth Maul takes out his double-sided lightsaber, and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are about to engage when the kid says something like, come with me if you want to live, and they flee Darth Maul through a back exit whilst he's following close behind, and they run into a spaceport and hop into this rusty-looking spaceship and take to the skies, but not quickly enough, because Darth Maul pulls out a magnetic tracking device and throws it onto the ship's exterior. Then he just stands there watching the ship fly away, and he extinguishes his double-sided lightsaber. We then cut to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and the kid in space, and Obi-Wan says, whose ship is this? And the kid says, this is my ship. And Qui-Gon says, what's your name, my young friend? And he says, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. He says, my name is Anakin Skywalker. And he asks what the coordinates are for Coruscant, which he punches into the ship, and he says that he always wanted to leave Tatooine. Of course they ask him why he never did, and he says, I rebuilt this ship. I wasn't actually sure that it could make it out of the atmosphere. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon give each other a look which plainly says, fuck. Cut to Darth Maul in his ship. He phones home like the aforementioned extraterrestrial, and he says, I tracked the Jedi as far as Tatooine, but they escaped again with the help of a boy. I'm currently tracking their ship. I believe they have charted a course for Coruscant. And Darth Sidious says, you must arrive at Coruscant first. Kill them before they can alert the Jedi Council. So Darth Maul flies super fast in a super fast evil-looking ship, and he gets to Coruscant before them. We then return to Anakin's ship, and we hear his brief history. How his mother died when he was 9, how he attempted to build a protocol droid called C-3PO, but he didn't have the right parts, how he never knew his father, and how he'd always been an outcast because people said he was odd. He could influence people's decisions and read their thoughts, and he was accused of spying and sneaking like Gollum, but different, because Anakin is taller than 3 feet, he doesn't have 2 personalities, and he doesn't speak like an idiot. Well, we feel we get to know Anakin pretty darn well, and Qui-Gon says, I think you're a Jedi. We'll have the Jedi Council evaluate you, and if you are, I'm going to make you my apprentice. And Anakin is simply thrilled, because he always wanted to be something special. Also, you can tell that he starts to think of Qui-Gon as a father figure. This is important for events that occur later in the film. We fade to a shot of Anakin's ship landing in Coruscant spaceport, and maybe there's a joke where Anakin throws the ship's keys to a valet, and he's like, take good care of it, will you? And the valet gives him this look, which plainly says, this is a piece of shit. Qui-Gon says they must immediately make for the Jedi Temple when they see Darth Maul, and he's like, I've got you now. And Qui-Gon says, Anakin, go to the Jedi Temple, get help. And Anakin says, I don't know where that is. And Qui-Gon says, use the Force. So Anakin runs off in search of the Jedi Temple. What follows is a big lightsaber battle through the spaceport, which leads Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon into this awesome-looking, aesthetically pleasing blue generator room, and there's a great score and awesome action. The fight is peppered with shots of Anakin running through Coruscant. Every now and then he closes his eyes to tap into the Force or something, and finally he arrives at the Jedi Temple, and he bursts into the round room where the Masters sit in a circle, and he says, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are dueling. A really evil-looking, horny, not sexually mind you, bloke who's got a double-sided lightsaber at the Coruscant airport, and they need help. And Mace Windu says, are you telling the motherfucking truth, you motherfucking kid? And Anakin says, I swear to Jar Jar Binks that I am. And they're like, Jar Jar who? And he says, I'm sorry, I like to create random creatures that make a devoted fan base weep every time they hear him mentioned. And Yoda says, no lie in his eyes do I see. Trust him, I do. And they all run past Anakin towards the airport, all of them except Yoda, who's like 900 years old and is the brains of the operation, not the brawn. Anyway, an unfortunate accident separates Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon gets stabbed by Darth Maul. Now, Obi-Wan should have run for help. Instead, he thinks, I can take him. Just want to clarify, Obi-Wan is not a homosexual. So he fights Darth Maul, and Darth Maul knocks Obi-Wan down this shaft. Again, not homosexual. Where Obi-Wan catches onto a ledge and holds on for dear life. Darth Maul is just about to Force choke or Force lightning Obi-Wan when the Jedi show up, a huge group of them, and Mace Windu says, drop your motherfucking lightsaber and put up your motherfucking hands, motherfucker. Darth Maul says nothing, but he jumps into the pit and slides down it to only George Lucas knows where. So the Jedi help Obi-Wan out of the pit, and Qui-Gon is life-flighted to a space hospital, and the doctor says,
we're sorry, there's nothing we can do.
And Obi-Wan is upset, and Anakin is super upset because, well, there goes his father figure and his chance of becoming a Jedi. And then Qui-Gon dies, and it's super sad, because in Star Wars Return of the Sith, we actually made an emotional connection with Qui-Gon. But don't worry, that's not how it ends. Obi-Wan says that he'll take Anakin as his apprentice if the Council decides he's a Jedi, and the Council says he definitely is a Jedi, and nobody says he's too old because that's just bullshit. And Anakin officially becomes Obi-Wan's apprentice, and there's a funeral for Qui-Gon, and everybody stands around the burning body, and Yoda says, the work of a Sith, this is. And Mace Windu says sepulchrally, yes, Master Yoda, I'm afraid the motherfucking Sith have returned. And then, boom! Roll credits. Take that, George Lucas.